Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 2021 Hampton Roads Power BI User Group meeting. I'm going to go ahead and get started. As always, rolling through our agenda, we go through announcements, take a look at some of the latest Power BI updates. They have updates every month. We'll go over our feature presentation, and then we can go ahead and do a conclusion and raffle. The raffle is an Amazon gift card, so stick around to the end if you want to that. All right. As for our group announcements, we do have virtual sessions each month scheduled through the remainder of 2021. So we are remaining virtual. That's the big one for that for the time being. And then, as I've mentioned before, the goal is to go hybrid eventually. But with the hybrid approach, we can still have virtual attendees and virtual speakers, but also in-person attendees. But as of right now, for the remainder of 2021, we do have sessions every month, but they are also going to be virtual. We've got some great sessions coming up in September, October, November, December, all scheduled, so looking forward to that. And then just to highlight our socials, we're on too many social media platforms. If there are any that you want us to be on, always let us know, but you can find us from our website, email, contact us directly, Twitter, Meetup, Slack. All of our meetings are posted on YouTube, so you can watch this after the fact. And then the new Microsoft Community platform, it basically covers the same as Meetup, so it will have our meeting links there, and you can join there, but it's directly through Microsoft instead of a third party, so that's relatively new. On to some updates. Looking at August 2021, they released the updates a little bit earlier this month, but there's not too many. The biggest one is definitely the enhanced experience for browsing visuals. That's that GIF that we see here on the side. So if you've ever downloaded an app from the Power BI service, you'll notice it's very familiar. We have this gallery view that looks exactly like the app source, and technically is Microsoft's app source that they use for other products as well. And with that, it has a couple of other improvements. So in the GIF, you can see that it's filtering through different tabs, so you can look at all the visuals, all the custom visuals, or custom visuals made by your organization. And then also the filtering, you have different options such as Microsoft certified visuals and things like that. And then the search is greatly improved. I don't know if you've searched for custom visuals, but it was always kind of hit or miss if you were going to find what you're looking for with your search criteria. So it's a lot improved. And then the other big thing with this enhancement is in Power BI Desktop itself, you can pin your visualizations, meaning you can pin them once, and then the next time you open Desktop, you don't have to re-download them or re-get them. They'll actually appear in your visualizations pane for the next time, so that could be useful. And another big one is the custom shape formatting. So they enhanced the shapes that you can insert into the report, which is exciting, and it really gave you a little bit ability to customize them further through ways that you wouldn't really expect, like moving turning a rectangle into an arrow, for example, like really messing with the axes on shape formatting. So you can really dive deep into customize the shapes that they give you to create even different shapes. And then another big one is the x-axis constant line, that vertical line that you can add as a constant. You can now have some shading in there and transparency to the shading and change some of the formatting with that, but really something that is common in visualizations, which might shade, the whole area to the left of a chart off of a constant, or to the right, for example. But also Q&A synonyms. The Q&A synonyms can now be exported and shared to other users that have permission to the data set, so you don't have to keep creating the synonyms over and over again if you're using different data sets with similar synonyms. So that's pretty useful. And then the date and time DAX expressions, that's a big one. So they've actually added new expressions in DAX to handle date times and dates. And it really just simplifies the way that you connect to them. It'd be easier to go through an example, but looking at the documentation, it just makes it writing the date and time formatting a lot quicker. All right. If you've been enjoying my voice, I have great news. I'm actually our speaker for this month as well, so I will be rolling on to our presentation. If you haven't been enjoying my voice, fear not. We have other industry professionals lined up for the rest of the year, but I had a topic that I wanted to share, and that is becoming a Microsoft Certified Data Analyst Associate. So this is sort of a niche topic, so definitely won't be as popular as some of our other topics that we've had recently by Microsoft MVPs and some really crowd-pleasing stuff. But if you are looking to take this exam, this is some must-know information. So I'll get into my own bio and everything as I transition over to the presentation. All right, jumping into a slide deck here. I've got our title, all information we know, and a bit bio about myself. This is a Marathon slide deck because I am a consultant at Marathon. They are a local IT firm here to Virginia Beach, and I've been with them for over 4 years, working in Power BI, across the spectrum with Power BI, report development. I've been a tenant administrator and also instructor. I've specialized in really getting new organizations that are new to Power BI and getting them up and running. Also, our Hampton Roads Power BI user group leader, and most importantly, I have passed this exam. I am a Microsoft Certified Data Analyst Associate. Jumping on in. So what are we going to cover? We have, for this exam, what is it, who should take it, why take it, how is it structured, and really, if you are this far, the one thing you want to know is how do you pass it, how do you prepare for it? Okay. The exam is technically titled DA 100, Analyzing Data with Microsoft Power BI. It is currently the only requirement for the Certified Data Analyst Associate. There's been a big shakeup in Microsoft exams as of late. Well, as of January 2020, when they announced it, and then they kind of pushed it back a whole year. But there was a Power BI exam, the 7778. That one has been retired, and this one replaces that. So this is the latest and greatest as far as exams go, and it's part of the bigger spectrum of Microsoft has completely switched over from what they called product-based certifications into role-based certifications. So with that, they actually dropped a lot of the titles that you can get, the MCSA, MCSD, MCSE that many people are familiar with, all retired. So you cannot take exams to earn those anymore. And instead we have what we call these role-based ones, which are more tied to specific, simply put, roles. So data scientist, data analyst, SQL developer, things like that. Those are tied to the role and not necessarily a product. So when SQL Server 2019 came out, they didn't create a certification specifically for that anymore. They held back. They did it tied to the role and not the product, for example. I am going to jump into this documentation because this is the most important part as far as what it is. that we can learn from it. And simply put, you take the one exam and you get the cert. So other Microsoft certifications might take multiple exams, so on. And then highlighting 5 skills measured: preparing, modeling, visualizing, analyzing all data, and then deploy and maintain deliverables, which is managing the Power BI environment. And then we can get into some of the learning paths and things like that, but I will cover that more on the details. The exam documentation. If there's anything useful here. The exam costs $165. I can get into that. That is the same structure for all of Microsoft's exams currently, but there are different promotions that they run sometimes where you can get them discounted or free even. They had a free exam offered up through Microsoft Ignite this year. So if you attended that conference, which was virtual, then you got to partake on a free exam, so that was nice. All right, we know what it is. Who are the people that it's aimed geared towards? I would right off the bat say subject matter experts for Power BI. If you are have been working on it for just a little bit and you're kind of on the fence, just know that it is a very comprehensive exam. That's kind of the most important thing to get across. You definitely need to know all aspects of the tool, specifically, of course, the desktop, which is the development environment, the online Power BI service where you can share and even create things off of the web, and then a little bit of administration. And I don't mean being a tenant admin, that's not necessarily required, but it is helpful. However, specifically the administration side of the exam is things like giving permissions to users and specifically knowing when to give them permissions, not just how, because they get pretty detailed. Also, how to build the reports, standard, but what they really want to know is how to address the specific needs, and I'll get into that in more detail, but that means knowing exactly which types of reports or visuals to build rather than just knowing how to do one. So if that sounds like, you know, something that you can handle, this is for you. But if you're not that experienced, that doesn't mean you can't take it either. There are definitely plenty of ways to study and prepare, and you don't need to have years of experience in order to handle it. It is very comprehensive, but it is not overly difficult. There's just a lot of information on the exam. Why do you want to take it? Currently, it is the premier certification for Power BI. That's, in my opinion, it is offered by Microsoft, but there are other Power BI certifications that just aren't as valuable in industry. And then just in general, certifications help you break into a new career where you may not have that job experience, but you can show that you're able to handle the skill. And then conversely, if you're already in the career, you can use it to showcase skills to prospective clients or even your current employer and say, you know, hey, I'm doing really well at what I do and I know a lot about it, and that can lead to some career growth along the way. So always a good thing to expand your, develop yourself. The important parts is the structure. I did have to sign an NDA as far as taking it, so there are certain things I can't say, like exact details, but some of the information's been pretty public and people mentioned a lot. So I can get away with saying they give you 180 minutes to take the exam, and you have approximately 60 questions to answer. There are case studies, and then the answer format is multiple choice or multi-select depending on the question. The big thing that I mentioned is 116 skills that can be on the exam. I'm going to open that up and run through them, but not spend a lot of time, just to give you a indication of the scope. And then, of course, it is through a testing center or virtually with a proctor. If you've never taken an exam like this, the testing centers are pretty straightforward. You hand them your phone, you go into a room, and they've got a camera pointed at you so they can see your actions at all times. But the virtual one was new for me. So I did take it virtually, and you had to submit pictures of your entire environment, the room that you were taking it in, a picture of yourself. You were on a video with the proctor, and they were able to see and hear you the whole time. They can, take a look at your environment and say, hey, I had a sticky note on my desk, and they said, what is that? You have to remove it. So they're definitely thoroughly looking at things like that. And then you cannot speak during the exam, even if you're mumbling to yourself. You're not supposed to talk. You're not supposed to chew or eat food. They don't want to hear your phone go off. They can't see anyone else walk into the picture or anything like that. Any of those things, they do mention that it could report or could end up being an automatic failure. So that's pretty intense. That was one of the most stressful parts was, you're kind of locked in this environment of, I have to be taking this exam. But outside of that, you just focus on answering the questions and you can roll through it. I am going to switch to this one, these skills. All right, like I said, I'm not going to roll through these, but Microsoft does provide information about the exam thoroughly. And another note is that it's updated all the time. This is actually brand new. I'm reading this for the first time. The exam is going to be updated again. Yesterday, that wasn't even there. They've updated it multiple times this year. The last time they updated it, I think, was towards the end of July, but they usually update it every month or so with different types of questions. And you can see highlighted in red the things that are going to be changing in September. But like I said, I'm not going to go through all this specifically, but the highlights are preparing the data is 20 to 25%. Modeling the data is 20 to 25 to 30%. So visualizing the data 20 to 25%. Analyzing the data 10 to 15. And then the last one, deploying and maintaining deliverables 10 to 15. So the bulk of it is going to be that, modeling and analyzations that you do in Power BI Desktop, and then building visuals. There are questions on DAX. I do kind of get this question a lot, is do I need to know the programming side, the DAX and M on the exam? And it's on here. So yes, there are questions related to that, or there may be questions related to that, but you won't have to write anything from scratch. If there is a question like that, you will have a drop down and you just have to answer, what is the function that best fits this scenario. So. That's about it. Okay, further down it tells you what's going to change. See if I can, sensitivity labels, that just made general availability, so they added that. That makes sense because in short, anything that's been listed as generally available on Power BI is possible to be on the exam, and that's why it's so large. Any single feature that is generally available to the public can be added in there. It's quite a lot. Fear not, we've got some methods to the madness, some ways that we can prepare. Sorry, I have to keep switching over screens. Back to the presentation. All right. A big thing with this structure that I didn't mention is, yes, it's 180 minutes, 60 questions, So you've probably already thought about it. You have about 3 minutes to answer each question. It doesn't sound like a lot, it really doesn't, but it definitely is. There are some questions that took me 10 seconds to answer and some that took me 10 minutes, but you just need to take your time reading it. I did not feel rushed at all throughout the process, and I honestly don't remember. I had at least an hour remaining though, so I really didn't struggle for time. But for the ones that I was focused on, I took my time. So you're able to pace it out. Most important, preparation. There are definitely some courses available online, both free and paid. The very first thing I would do is the Microsoft Learn, which was actually, if you're looking at the exam on Microsoft's website, it rolls right into that. They have courses that cover every single one of the 5 main topic areas, and there's videos and also ways that you can follow along with those. That is the number one thing I would do because it's so specific to the exam, the ones that Microsoft put out. And then from there, you can look at the 5 topic areas and see kind of which ones you understood the most, and then drill down from there and pick ones more specific to the things that you are struggling with. Some other ones I would look at, shout out to BI Elite. They have a training course that is paid, but it's also pretty inexpensive. And they have a 7-day free trial. So I signed up for that one. I did the entire course in less than 7 days and was able to experience that whole course without paying. But it's also pretty inexpensive and worth it if you needed to take more time or take advantage of some of the other courses on their site, because it was a really good course. Just like the Microsoft one, it covered every single section, but they had topics for every single one of the bullet points that we just went through. So they were very thorough. Udemy is also a popular one. Theirs is paid, and I have not used it, but I've heard good things about it. And then there's also the Microsoft Labs that are used for the official training. Microsoft provides official training for the course that you can purchase, and they've publicly put out on GitHub the labs that they offer to their instructors to use in those courses. So if you want to go to that link and check out the GitHub, you can go and see all the labs from the trainings that you can purchase and follow along with them. So that's also pretty useful. There's a bunch of practice exams. There's some Microsoft ones, and then third-party ones that they send you to. Those are usually paid. It is possible that there are exam questions out there on the internet. I would never tell you where to find those, but in theory, if you can imagine it, some people may have broken the NDA that I would never do and published some of the exam questions. So there are practice exams that have the exact exam questions, which, like I said, if you want to find it, it's out there. And then there's, of course, training videos. I definitely recommend YouTube, but there's way too many YouTube channels to list. Maybe I should spend some time and just make a list or an article or a post or something of all the amounts of Power BI content out there. You may recognize Guy in the Cube, and there's just so many others. I can go on and on, but for YouTube videos and for training like that, I would look up specific things. You can, of course, search by a topic, and you just be drowning in information if you try to look at a random 1-hour introductory Power BI training course on YouTube, because there are hundreds of those, maybe thousands, but there's so many different courses and trainings that I would just look for videos for something that you want to know specifically. And then, like most Microsoft certifications, there are actually recently released the exam reference document. So they released the book in May, and it's just like all the other exam references. And those, I think they're now green cover art, but it's a book that specifically references the exam and tells you all the topics and everything. As I mentioned, though, there's a lot of different topics, and the number one thing that I would recommend, the most important thing that we can get out of this, is just being familiar with the tool. You can drown in training videos and practice, but it really is most helpful to be familiar with the tool. And it sounds obvious, but there are specific questions that the exam asks that asks what certain actions are called or how to perform those actions. And I found that that's a lot easier to recall from my experience rather than trying to memorize it and I haven't seen or done it before. But they definitely have those types of structured questions where what's this functionality called, not how can I perform it. So it's really ingrained into the current structure of the tool, which is why the exam's always being updated. But throughout the courses, if you're just reading material and you're not going into Power BI Desktop and following along or building stuff yourself, you're going to have a more difficult time, definitely. Just to reiterate, you definitely don't need to purchase any training content. I think I've outlined enough free ways that you can prepare. But it's definitely something that even if you feel super confident, and I still looked at content myself. So it's like I said, there's over 160 different topics that they can throw at you now. It's growing. I think keeps going up, but so it helps to be familiar with everything as you're going through. No need to overload you with a bunch of information. It's kind of a simple topic, so just want to give some summary here. The exam has a lot of different content areas, like I said, but if you're successful, it shows that you're a skilled user and you can deploy a comprehensive data solution for an organization, meaning you can use Power BI to have an enterprise level report, and not just report, but enterprise level structure of reporting for an organization. And that's obviously pretty, I don't want to use the word powerful, but it's powerful in the sense that the exam does hold a lot of weight as far as your knowledge as you're going through it. So like I said, passing it, you've got the ability to model, analyze, and visualize the data effectively, but then also use the cloud service and manage content. Then if you have the certification, you could be a data analyst for Power BI easily. All that to say, the exam is pretty in depth, and you have to know your stuff as you're going through it. But if you get through there, it definitely shows what you're worth. It shows that you can at least know a little bit of all throughout Power BI. It's not I can build a report. It's not I can do the data modeling in M. It's not I know DAX for days. It's I know a little bit about all the things that Power BI tool has to offer. So it definitely is overwhelming in a sense, but I hope that was helpful. That's sort of my summary. I'd love to answer some questions and go through some things in detail, but like I said, the exam's pretty straightforward. There's just a lot in it, but it's not something to stress over. It's something that they give you a lot of time to answer the questions, and there's no need to rush through them. I've found that, you know, taking your time and reading even the simple questions helps you be more successful as you're going through, because I'm, you know, quick to say, oh, I can get by this one and go to the next one as quickly as possible, but you might miss what the question is trying to ask you, basic exam guides, but really is like it gives you enough time to take your time. So emphasis on that. Just go through it and answer to the best of your ability, because it isn't just memorization and going through. It's a lot of seeing what they're asking you to do and then thinking how to do it and then answering the question that's most related to how to do it. Because you're not going through Power BI and building something, but you're answering a question as if you will. So it's kind of a unique experience if you're just used to developing reports or something like that. It's asking you to kind of think of the big picture of, how would this be done or what needs to be done in order to make this happen, and then answering the questions from there. We do have one question. The DAX updates that I mentioned, the new date and date time functionality, are they available in other products? The Power BI documentation didn't specify, so I would hesitate to say yes, they are. So probably just DAX and Power BI Desktop. We have another question about whether or not I can say and what is the most challenging thing about the exam specifically. Yeah, I think I can definitely answer that to an extent. The most challenging part about the exam is, I think I can say it, the case studies were pretty in-depth. You had multiple questions tied to a single case study where they gave you a bunch of information, and you had to read all of it before you can go and address the answers to the questions. So it was a lot of spending extra time reading, and it felt like it was more of a English SAT exam more than anything. But that's just how case studies are. They give you a lot of information and you have to regurgitate it back, but related to Power BI and related to, like I said, deploying a comprehensive data solution to an organization, those types of things where the questions are geared towards that. And so the case study is, how would you not just design, but also deploy and things like that. I tried to be specific and generic. I hope I was. Great question. Minimum score to pass the exam is 700 out of 1,000 is the minimum score. So 70%, not bad. The exam is not a prerequisite for anything. You just take the exam and you become a certified data analyst associate. There's nothing after it either. So there is no certification directly tied to it that you become the data analyst associate and then you become, grand data analyst, nothing like that. Right now, they just have the one exam and the one title, and then you have other exams and other titles in other job categories. I appreciate the questions. You can keep them on coming. I'm going to go ahead and post our raffle information. So if you fill out this form, I will let you know who the winner is after this via email, but the raffle's for an Amazon gift card, and we won't use any of your information or anything just to send you the gift card. So another question, can you repeat the exam if you fail? Yes, but you have to pay for it again. So if you don't have a coupon code or your company willing to pay for the exam, it is $165 like all the other Microsoft exams. And if you fail, you pay that again. but they do allow you to repeat it. How generous of them. Yes, we'll collect your money again. Go ahead and switch my screens over while I see if there's any other questions we have. All right, we have the survey from the link, but the other thing I want to talk about is the exam only available in English? I don't believe so. I do think it is available in other languages, and I remember seeing something on that, but I don't know what languages specifically. So I know exactly where to find that. I can look it up and let you know. Or it's the Microsoft documentation that is one of the links in the PowerPoint, and it does specify what languages the exam's available in. It's a good question. All right, and then the other big thing to discuss is next month we have Sandeep Pawar, a data scientist professional, is going to be talking about using Jupyter Notebooks with Power BI next month. Super excited about that. I will hang out if there are any more questions. I know we don't really have a interactive environment yet, but I will hang out for a bit here, and we'll be emailing the person who won our raffle. But that is all I have for this month. Thank you guys very much for attending, and I will be posting the video to YouTube if you missed it, and you can catch up on the details there. Not seeing any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close this all out, but thank you again, everyone, for coming, and we'll see you next month.